The Mariners have lost 5 of their last 6 series, and after getting swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks, we are here to talk about that and what has gone wrong over this basically 20-game stretch. We'll talk about that, a little bit of Storm, a little bit of Kraken. Anything else to say, John, before we get started?
Horrible feelings, bad vibes all around. Listen to another podcast.
Yes, this is the Sound of Seattle podcast, and here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John, walk me through how you're just feeling right now. The Mariners just got swept by the Diamondbacks. Gino Suarez hits a grand slam for the Diamondbacks to take the lead in this last game. None of these games were relatively competitive, and it was just kind of tough to watch. They have a lead, I believe, in every single game, or if not, they had it tied, I believe, in the first one, 4-4, and then they hit the grand slam. But in general, like, it felt like they were in most of these games, and then it just got given up kind of in the back half. Walk me through your emotions going through it.
It's been brutal. I was ready to talk about what a devastatingly typical Mariners stretch this was at the end of the Angels series, let alone after a sweep from the very talented Arizona Diamondbacks. It's just been so tough. Literally, last we talked, they had a game and a half lead in the division, and were looking good. You know, they'd been faltering slightly. And since then, in the last 2 weeks, it has been just complete and utter collapse. They have lost 11 of 14. They have lost 8 of their last 9. Horrible. I feel really, really bad. And the worst thing is they've been scoring runs. They've scored 2 or more runs, which is a low bar, but 2 or more runs in their last 8 straight games. And they have won 1 of those 8 games. So I guess we do know what's happening, but it's not the usual suspects. It's some suspect pitching that is leading to these outcomes, and it's really hard to watch.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Mariners kind of Twitter sphere, the Mariners ecosystem right now is really up in arms about the hitting and how poor the hitting has been. But when you think about it and how this team has been built and how we've all perceived it to be built over the last 3-4 years, it's been about the pitching being good. And the fact of the matter is the pitching is not good right now. And we can say that that's due to injury, but at the same time, we talked about it at the beginning of the year, the Mariners just had no fallback plan. And when that happens, you run into this kind of thing where your team is giving up. I haven't done the math. I haven't even looked it up, but I feel like we're giving up 6 runs a game right now. And that's just not sustainable for a good team, for a team that's going to make the playoffs. And it's really tough to watch. And I can't really tell if it's because of the bullpen, if it's because of the starting pitching, if it's because Dan Wilson is leaving the starting pitchers in too long. We saw that a little bit today with Brian Wu giving up that grand slam to Gino. But it happened, Logan Evans gives up 5 runs yesterday at the end of his start. And it's just like, is that because of Dan Wilson leaving the pitchers in too long? Or is it he doesn't trust the back end of this pitching staff when it comes to the bullpen? You got Munoz and Brash has thrown all of 11 innings. It's like this team just doesn't have anybody on the backside. And we will maybe talk in a future pod about trading and upgrading at the bullpen spot. But it's like Trent Thornton gave up 6 runs yesterday. Our bullpen guys are just not performing. Edward Bizardo is basically our second best reliever. That guy is not, he shouldn't even be in a high leverage situation, let alone the 7th inning. Like, he should be our 4th guy down. And I don't know what's happened with this Mariners pitching rotation, I guess, when it's come to like bringing in guys from, acquiring them and seeing the talent and kind of, talent acquisition that we were so good at for the last few years. And whatever has happened since then, I don't know, but it's been rough to watch.
Yeah, and it's not really what we've been talking about so far this year. It's really reared its ugly head in the last couple of weeks, but this year it's all been, the starters, and it's been, injuries to our top guys. And can we survive that? But, recently there've certainly been some shaky starting outings, but it's just been so apparent that when it's time to close a game, we just don't have the guys to do it. And it's just a problem on a problem because we are still having issues with our starting rotation. Dealing with guys coming back from injuries, dealing with guys trying to shake rust. But we can't even focus on that right now because, the relief efforts have been so abysmal. You guys will hear when we get into floating and floundering. We've got a lot of floaters on our offense right now. Our bats are relatively hot. And again, I said 2 or more runs, but we've had outings where we score 4 runs and lose, where we score 6 runs and lose. That's not how the Mariners have played recently. I mean, if we score 6 runs, we have to win those games.
Yeah.
And there are 4 times in the last 10 games that I can see where we've scored 4 or more runs and lost, and that is just not Mariners baseball. So, the pitching is a mess. The offense can have some bad days too, but it's really all eyes on pitching right now.
Yeah, and with that, so I talked last week. You weren't around for the Mariners discussion, but I talked about George Kirby and how he had kind of a rough couple starts. So we can talk about a little bit of positive here. We can talk George Kirby's start and that win against the Angels. 14 strikeouts for George Kirby. I want to give him a shout out because we are kind of berating the pitching staff, and he, if we looked at just his ERA, it wouldn't look great. But George Kirby, coming into that game, gives up 2 hits, 2 earned runs, and that was just a one Taylor Ward mistake. Gives up 2 runs there, but 14 strikeouts. He looked dominant, looking like old George Kirby when it comes to pumping fastballs right at the top of the zone. And really, honestly, what I saw that was really good and something that George Kirby, I don't know that he'd done a lot of, was throwing off-speed pitches outside of the strike zone and getting hitters to chase, which is something that I think I talked about, which was like this guy, and we've talked about it before, this guy throws too many strikes. You need to get the ball out of the zone, get hitters to chase a little bit, and he did a great job of that there. So I just really had to shout George Kirby out. I know he's one of your guys, so talk about it.
Totally. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up too, because we can't blow past what an amazing outing that was for a guy that has been horrendous. He's been so bad in his 4 starts, I guess 3 starts so far this year. 3 straight losses where he got shelled, never made it past 5 innings. Let's look. 5 earned runs, 6 earned runs. Technically only 2 against Baltimore, but he only made it 5. And then finally, a Kirby outing that we've been waiting for. 7 innings pitched, 14 strikeouts, masterful performance. It was always going to take time for him. He missed the whole start of the year with injury. He needed to ramp up, and it's unfortunate when you're ramping up in high leverage situations in the middle of a competitive season. But there's a reason we kept putting him out there, and it's because we knew ultimately who George Kirby is. So, I think this last outing is much more reflective of what the rest of the season is going to look like than his first 3. And that is immensely important for this team because, again, a lot of our starters have been, maybe a little overextended with, all the injuries. And, just getting him back into any sort of Kirby-esque form as we try to recover as a unit will be super important. So, big props to him. He didn't make it into our floaters or flounders, but could definitely make it as a floater because he had been so bad. It's hard to express. His ERA was a complete nightmare. And so to see him return to form was important.
Yeah. And let's take this and jump to another guy who's a little bit worse for the wear when it comes to Bryce Miller. Comes back for 2 starts and is obviously still laboring through injury and just, trying to get back to form, figure it out. And he's got that bone spur in his elbow, and it's like, okay, if he needs surgery, he's going to be out for the year. Do we rest him? The Mariners really don't know what to do with him, and I think that's been the issue here. It's like they're trying to preserve this rotation of 5 guys, and Miller is kind of the final piece of that. But if he's going to be doing this, if he's going to be pitching like this, and the options are he does this and doesn't get surgery until the end of the year, and then he misses the start of next year or parts of next year, it's like if he's going to be pitching this poorly, just get the surgery over with. Like, just take him out for the season. Emerson Hancock has been doing great. Logan Evans has been doing great. Like, swap those guys in, give them spot starts as needed, whatever you got to do to fix this rotation, but give it some consistency because we know Logan Gilbert's going to come back and he's going to be slotted in at that, first or second spot when it comes to the rotation. And you've got 2 guys who have been performing at the major league level for basically the entire season. So I think the Bryce Miller thing, has just been handled really poorly by the Mariners. And for all of the praise that we've given this pitching development group that has done a great job in terms of keeping these arms healthy, I feel like they really screwed the pooch on this one. And I think it's something that we got to kind of scold them a little bit for when it comes to, these guys. We have to protect these arms if you want to make them work and make them last the way that we've been making them do over the course of the season in the last couple of years. So just tough there for Bryce Miller, and honestly hurts the Mariners a lot too if they were going to trade him or anything like that. Like his trade value is just absolutely tanked. It's really tough to just like see him going through that as well. So tough out there.
It is very tough, and I completely agree in terms of mismanagement. I do think it's been a tough spot just because, up until recently, the team was doing so well despite all these injuries that I could see the team just being like, we gotta keep the arms going until, we can work through some of these injuries. But now with the way this is unraveling a little bit on us, I'm very pro putting Bryce on ice. He doesn't need to be, throwing every 7 or 8 days. That's for sure. It's clearly affecting him, and if surgery is ultimately what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. I would just say, Kirby's rounding back into form. Gilbert's coming back. Can we put Bryce on ice for a month or two? See if we can get to, August 1st and just see how the team is looking. Because if it's a situation where it's like, okay, no, that mid-season slump was terrible, but they're rounding back into form, they're competing for the top of the AL West again, then there is a situation where it's like, okay, can Bryce, on a lot of rest, be our fifth guy? Can he... I know Hancock's been good. I'm all about giving Evans opportunities, and that's, another good reason to put Bryce on ice is like, hey, Logan's been playing, Evans has been playing well. Let's give him more opportunities. But, if it's a potential postseason conversation, do you want the option? I don't want to lose him for the start of next year, but I do think I would just caution, let's just take it slow. Let's give him a break. Stop making him throw through a bone spur for no reason, and just see what there is to see. But I certainly hear what you're saying. No big fight with you on that. He's certainly not the guy we saw last year.
Yeah, I think if he's sitting in your fifth spot and you're giving him a month and a half off, in my opinion, I would just say, he's at this point the fifth best of the five main guys, right? He's pretty definitively it's Gilbert, Wu, maybe Kirby, Castillo, one of those four in that order, and then it's Miller. And if you have to swap Hancock with Miller, that's one every 5 days. You're getting, at the time you would get him back, right? If he's coming back, it's middle of June right now. If he's coming back at the end of September or end of August, he's getting a month to ramp up. And at that point, that's 3 or 4 starts, maybe 5. And in my opinion, I would just get it over with, right? If you're going to make him stay on the 60-day IL, just get it over with. The only thing you could really argue with that is, hey, our bullpen has been so bad. If we are going to make the playoffs, if we have a good enough record to get there, Miller is probably a good enough bullpen arm if he's throwing at full strength to warrant that. But it's such a hypothetical now. I agree with you. Give him a month. Give us till the trade deadline. Once they make that decision about what they're going to do, then they can really deal with what Bryce Miller his future is going to look like this year.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying about his trade value, and I'm also not in a place where I feel like I want to sell low on him, because I do think a bone spur can really throw you off, and I still think he's super talented and awesome. I'm just bummed he's going through this. So I'm certainly more pro putting him on ice for next year, letting him get that surgery, than selling low just to, try to get some help, for the relievers. I know we need help there, but selling low on him is not what I want to do.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about trades, I think, in an upcoming pod, just because the trade deadline is so hit or miss, and I know everybody wants to talk about it, but we'll talk about that later, and kind of the pieces that they could use to acquire some stuff. But with this Mariners team, it's just it's so tricky. I want to talk. I linked this in our show notes, and I really want to talk about it, is just this team's ability to hit the ball with runners in scoring position, because it is a thing that everybody in baseball, and especially Mariners culture, talks about all the time how this team sucks with with runners in scoring position. And sometimes the data doesn't back that up. It's just like, oh, it feels like it because you feel those negative moments. And this season, that is just not the case. The Mariners kind of suck with runners in scoring position. They're tied for the third most ground balls into double play with the Athletics with 19 on the season. And currently, in terms of just their their batting average, they are 26th when it comes to runners in scoring position, hitting a measly 224, which is not much higher than their actual just team average, to be honest. Their team average just kind of sucks. But it's one of those things where this team has not performed well in the clutch. Like, all things considered, like, they just have not been able to push runs across in terms of they have a lot of sacrifice bunts, right? They're sixth most in sacrifice bunts. They have no sac flies. A sac fly means you score the run. The bunt means you move somebody over. And in that case, they're just unable to finish things out. And it's just it's really annoying. It's really annoying. Yeah. And I kind of hate watching this team sometimes. They've got 147 strikeouts with runners in scoring position. That's eighth most in the league. And, sometimes they take walks, but other than that, they really don't do much.
It passes the eye test, I'll tell you what. Yeah, they abandon guys on base, which is the worst feeling in baseball. It always sucks, and they do it a lot. So that is frustrating. I do think overall there have been some really positive offensive signs. I still just think the runs that we're giving up is what's killing us.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. I mean, if you look at our last 6 games, we've scored 4, 6, 3, 4, 3, 2 runs. If we're doing that, historically, that means we're winning 4 of the 6, probably. So I don't want to give the offense too hard of a time. Obviously, stats don't lie, eyes don't lie. They are leaving guys on base a lot. But a couple of our guys, who we'll talk about here pretty soon, are absolutely cooking right now. I mean, those things are frustrating, and they are real. And as the entire offense as a unit, those problems are very apparent. But I mean, we're still getting guys across home base at a fairly reasonable clip for what we would expect for this unit, for the amount of money put into this unit. I'm not too disappointed with 4-run outings, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just general statistics for this team offensively, we're very middling, right? We're in like kind of the middle of the road. This is exactly what we expected from this team. Like, yes. We can't say that at this point in the year we are performing any worse than we thought we would have been. The big thing is, right, we are at the bottom of the valley of this offense, right? We were at a peak a month ago, and we were hitting so well. We were, in the top 10 when it came to most batting statistics. And now we are middling out, like, where everybody has figured out how to pitch against us, and now we're at the bottom of the valley. I hope it doesn't get any worse, but it's like, this is where we expected the team to be, and data-wise, it kind of sucks that we're at the point of the law of averages finally catching up to us. But this was bound to happen. And so, hitting-wise, it can feel rough. But we will, here in a couple minutes, just shout out some guys, because, yeah, you're right. The hitting has been pretty good so far when it comes to our main guys. I don't want to bury the lead too much. JP's been doing awesome this year. And he'll be definitely a floater. I'll take that one on the chin and just say that. But the pitching has been a struggle. It's a bottom third of the league right now, I think, when it comes to our pitching staff. So that's been the real concern. That's
the crazy part, because if you would have told me coming into the year, hey, we're going to be, somewhere around 15th when it comes to most, batting statistics, I would say, ooh la la, fantastic. We'll be top 3 in most major pitching statistics, and we'll be, top 7 team in baseball. The surprising thing when you look at the statistics are we're in the 20s in pitching. That's just not at all what we would have expected from our unit. I mean, obviously, you got to call out struggles where you see them, and there are plenty of struggles on offense to call out. But, in the big picture, it's very, very clear where this team is underperforming, and those are the guys throwing the balls. We've been burying it enough. Let's get into floaters and flounders for this week. I'm going to let you lead it off with the guy you've already mentioned.
Yeah. listen, guys, I know some people are really keen on home runs. I know some people are really keen on people who steal bases and do a lot of things great, or do one thing great. J.P. Crawford does everything just a little bit above average, and that is all we want from this man. The guy's got a WRC plus. When I last looked, it was earlier today. It was 140. This guy's hitting with a WRC plus better than 2 years ago when it was his peak year, right? His OPS was 818 in 2023, and we were all like, can this guy repeat this? This might be just a flash in the pan. And for all intents and purposes, he's repeating it just with less power, right? He's got 5 home runs in the year. He's on pace for 12 to 14 home runs, which is still great for JP. And his OPS right now is 780, so it's a little bit below that. But he's been able to get on base at such a high clip, right? He's walking 15.9% of the time. He's striking out 18.8. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio, right? He's just like his on base potential every time he walks up to the plate is so great. Even his average. I'm not a huge average guy. John kind of is. He's more old school in that way.
I am. I'm a huge average guy. But
his
understand.
average, he has the 18th best batting average in the MLB right now in his season where batting average is kind of hyperinflated, right? Everybody it feels like has a batting average over 300. He's got the 18th best batting average in the American League. On base percentage is 5th in the American League. Like he's getting on base almost 2/5 of the time. He's got an on base percentage of 396. That's kind of insane. And so the way that J.P. Crawford's season has been going is just kind of marvelous, considering at the start of the year we were kind of like, is this JP's final hurrah with the team? Like, what's going on? In the month of June, he's hitting 342 with a 444 on base and a 421 slugging for an 865 OPS. The guy's been amazing in the month of June, and I wanted to shout him out because we haven't really over the course of the year because it hasn't felt like anything big. But the guy's been doing great things, especially when it comes to Robles being gone from that leadoff spot and JP taking the reins. Instead of being that 9-hitter, he's now the leadoff, getting the most at-bats and making the most of those opportunities, which has been awesome for J.P. Crawford.
He's been amazing, man. He's got 43 walks on the year. 43. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I am an old-fashioned guy. I love batting average. I love walks. I love on base. 396 is better than his 2023 year by 16 points. That's insane. Batting 280, he's been awesome. And both his average and his OPS have been hurt by the fact that, he didn't get his batting average over 200 until mid-April. He really struggled to start the year. He was one of our earliest flounderers. So, statistically, he's been digging himself out of a hole. And here we find him at 280 with a 396 OBP. That's just dirty work from our boy JP. He's also just been unbelievable in the month of June specifically. If we want to localize it a little bit, batting 342 with a 440 on base in the month of June. The guy's getting on base basically half the time. 865 OPS for those that are interested. So it's been just incredibly dirty work in the month of June, and he is well deserving of a major shout out. It came along kind of slowly, and then all of a sudden he's just gotten like 1 degree hotter every single game, it feels like, and then all of a sudden here he is absolutely on fire.
Yeah, he was in the hole, and then he was like, let me climb up, and then we'll get on top of the dirt pile that was next to the hole. Like, I'm right there.
Exactly, yeah.
No, JP is doing great things.
Yeah, so he's been nasty. Well deserving of a shout-out. Another guy I'm going to shout out, ultimate small sample size king, but we have thrown a lot of dirt on this man, and we're looking for some bright spots on this team. How about a floating call-out for old man Solano himself? Donovan Solano, still only batting 188 on the year, a full 100 points lower than his performance last year. But respect where it's due. The man's batting 300 in the month of June. Now, has he only had 10 at-bats in that time? Yes, but we'll take 3 for 10 from our boy Donovan. Small sample size serving him here, but he's doing his job.
Yeah, and at the end of the month of May, he was, what was that, 4 for, let me do some quick math, 4 for 12. Like, he's, over the last 2 weeks-ish, he's basically a 300 hitter, which is what we expected from Donnie Barrels. And today, he hit his first home run, which is awesome. We love to see that for him. Get a little power back in the tank. Get that slugging percentage up to 600 for the month. It's been quite the tough year for Donovan Solano, and we had to shout him out where credit's due, because this team we talked about it, is the offense has actually kind of been clicking. And in a moment where Cal's been struggling, he's been the most consistent dude of all time. The bottom of this order has been really struggling. We'll talk about another guy next. And for this guy to be able to turn it on in this way, it's been really, really nice to see. Obviously, it comes at a time when the Mariners are losing, so we don't feel it as much, but it is still nice.
I think 3 straight hits in games, 3 straight RBIs. How's this for a crazy stat? He's got 3 RBIs in the month of June. That's over half his total RBIs on the season. He only had 2 coming into June. That means in his first 75 at-bats, he was responsible for 2 runs batted in. In his last 10, he's got 3, baby. That is massive improvement over a short amount of time.
The man's on a tear right now. We got to give it to him. Got to give him credit where credit's due.
Honestly, the more we talk about how good he's been, I'm really just realizing how atrocious he was.
He was so. The more I look at this page, I'm just like, this is so gross.
2 RBI before the month of June. That's horrendous.
His sample size isn't even enough to qualify for most baseball savant stats. So we got to put that out there. This is such a small sample size, but that's what floaters and flounders is for. It's for the bright moments and the low moments. We're
talking about 3 hits, but what a 3 hits they were. Shout out to our boy DS.
All right, with that, I will go for the low moment when it comes to the Mariners offense. And that has to come from our boy who is in a contract year. The guy is in a contract year trying to perform.
No.
He was hitting 400. He was hitting low 300s for most of the month of April. Had above 1,000 OPS. And the man now, in the month of June, is... Let me just make sure. Nope, that's runs. Never mind, not hits.
He's floundering is what
he's 0 for 14 in the month of June. He's got walked 1 time and scored that 1 time. 0 for 14 with 11 strikeouts. Dylan Moore, I don't know what's going on with you, brother, but you can't hit a fastball. And currently, month of June, 0 batting average, .67 on base. His OPS is obviously still .67. He hasn't gotten a hit, so you can't get any slugging. It's been rough. It's been a rough last couple months. May was not that good for him either. It was a 237, 292, 390 for a 682 OPS. That's not bad. It's kind of replacement level for a guy like Dylan Moore who plays every position. That's not bad. But this last stretch has been just so hard to watch. For a guy that he's been a great teammate for this Mariners team, for the Mariners guys, and has, like I said, at the end of a contract year, you want this guy to perform well, want him to make his money, and he is just not doing that. It's looking rough for him, and maybe we'll see what happens at the end of the season, but it might be his last year with the Mariners at this rate. Yeah.
Hate to see it in the contract year. It's also, I think we're underselling this a little bit because our expectations for Dylan Moore were relatively low entering the season, but he was batting 286 in the month of March. He was batting 286 in the month of April. Came down in May. He was only batting 240 across the entire month, but these are per month numbers. So his batting average, once again, looking at one stat, but the rest of his stats are reflective of this, were really good. He was over 300 for a while. He was down to 260 by the end of May, with his 240 average in the month. But
240 is not bad.
Viable offensive player for us. He has not registered a hit in June. A .000 batting average, if anybody's wondering what that math checks out to. It's been horrendous. He's completely fallen off the face of the earth. I just think the fact that it's Dylan Moore, it's he hasn't registered a hit in June. Classic Dylan Moore. But he has been really good up until this point. His stats are just completely cratering. So it's rough out there. It's rough out there for our boy Dylan. He was expecting a big payday, and I'm not sure where that money's coming from at this point.
Yeah. Dylan, I hope you hear this, and I hope whatever adjustments need to be made, you start making them. Maybe cheat on that fastball a little bit because you can't catch up to it. But yeah, it's been tough. John, finish us out. Get the floaters back into it.
You're right. Yeah, that's enough of Dylan. Sorry, buddy. I want to talk about a guy who's been unbelievable, and we've talked about him a couple times. Nobody's going to be surprised, but Julio Rodriguez, king of the Baseball Savant fielding page. So red. It's feel like a bullet's making
the
me angry just
elitist of
looking at
elite
it.
defenders when it comes to
It's
center field.
unbelievable. So fast, too. God, I love this kid. But he has been, frankly, unbelievable in the month of June. Another guy that just demands a shout-out. Batting .375 in the month with an .865 OPS. He hasn't been generating the most power. He hasn't had a home run yet, but he has 2 doubles and a triple. And I've just really kind of loved his approach. I think he's struck out 12 times, which I don't love to see.
But that's part of his game at this point.
Yeah, and only 1 walk, which is some regression from all that awesome stuff he was doing. But he's hitting the ball almost 4 out of 10 times he goes up to the plate, so I can't be that mad at him.
Yeah, I mean, 15 for 40 on the month that's a really good number for Julio. Like this is what we've seen. It takes him a bit to ramp up, right? A 202 average in April, 282 in May. He's at 375 in June so far. Like if he can keep this pace up, there's a world where he starts to carry this team again. But the issue has been the pitching, and we have reiterated that enough. But Julio's been great.
And to your point, too, just about leaving guys on base, he's been a singles machine for most of this, and he's been sitting there when it's time to switch sides quite a bit, which is unfortunate. But individual performance, he's been unbelievable. He's had 6 of his last 8 games have been multi-hit games. So he's just been absolutely pounding the ball. Yeah, again, getting stranded more than we would like. Again, the pitching is the issue, but he's been a flamethrower.
It's almost like having Mitch Garver as your 5-hitter leads to a little bit of runners in scoring position issues, huh? Who would have thought?
I don't want to talk about that.
But yeah, Julio's been great, and we had to shout him out because people have kind of been giving him flack over kind of in the national media and in general about just how he's been underperforming this year compared to relatively compared to the last few years, and that's just kind of not the case. Julio is every year. Everybody has this is the phase. This is Julio's year every single year. Is it going to click for this entire year for Julio? If he does, he's going to be an MVP candidate. And then it doesn't click for the first 2 months, and everybody's like, oh, this guy just kind of sucks. And then it's like, it clicks for the last 4, and everybody's like, oh, this guy's a top 15 to 20 player in the MLB. And it's like, can we just get used to it? And I don't think we ever will. But he's just doing everything right now that is expected of him, especially at that number 2 spot. Like, yes, we could ask for more power, but it's just not what he's been trying to do this season, right? He's trying to go the other way. He's trying to get base hits, get on base, let Cal hit home runs and hit him in because Cal's having an MVP type year. These things can all be the case, and we can be okay with how Julio's playing. He doesn't have to have a 1,000 OPS for us to commemorate his achievements.
Totally, yeah, and he's coming along. We can expect most of his average stats to climb over the course of the rest of the season, and his counting stats, he's on pace for 25 home runs. That's 7 behind his monster 2023 season, but that's, if we're getting 25 home runs from Julio, I don't know why we'd be complaining about that. Obviously, we'd love to see him in the 30s, and I'm not sure he's going to get there, but, this is about that time of year. He's batting 375 right now. Don't be surprised if he starts to generate a little more power with that, and we see a 6 or 7 home run month, and suddenly that's going to look very different. So, I've been impressed with his resilience and his ability to play a couple different ways. I mean, the walk thing is just kind of funny. He's had months where he's had almost 20 walks. Not 20, 10. He's had like 12 walks in a month, and this month he has 1 so far. So it's just he's playing completely differently, but when he's not hitting, he's capable of walking, which is encouraging. That's a positive development. And when he's hitting the ball, he is really hitting the ball. So power to come, but I'm very encouraged.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, John, before we move off the Mariners. And it's probably a little early to ask this question. And I maybe should have started the pod with this just because it's so prevalent on everybody's mind. With the way the Mariners pitching staff is situated right now, should the Mariners be sellers, or should they try and let the hitting kind of ride this out, and should they figure out the pitching once Logan Gilbert comes back? Is Logan Gilbert coming back warranted enough to say, hey, we can still be buyers, especially if they turn it around? There's a month and a half left, which is why I emphasized that it might be early. But talk to me about your opinion on this.
Yeah, as Mr. Pessimism, I am kind of feeling like a buyer. I mean, if it's possible, I would love to buy and just get some more bats for this offense. Obviously, we're talking about all our glaring issues being the guys throwing the baseball, but we have so much invested on that side of the ball. I'm kind of just counting on, if the idea is we make a run, I'm counting on that ship just kind of righting itself. And maybe that's naive, but I think it's way more likely that September rolls around and our pitching is great and we're just not scoring enough runs than it is that September rolls around and we're hitting the hell out of the ball, but we just don't have the pitching to win games. I struggle to see that outcome. And I do just think, this team is cheap enough that every year you say, no, let's just roll it over to next year. The odds are higher that we lose 2 or 3 of these pitchers because we're not going to pay them. So I do feel like while the window is even cracked, we have to go for it. I do think the offense is going to need help. Mitch Garver at the 5 is not, anybody's long-term answer. So I think I would be a buyer. Yeah, the fact that our problems haven't been the expected ones, that they've been unexpected, I kind of just want to pretend they don't exist and push along.
Yeah, I think as crazy as it is, I still feel like you can trust this pitching infrastructure and scouting team when it comes to developing or acquiring talent, when it comes to saying, hey, this guy, the way that his slider goes, the way that his slider and fastball look and how they break off of each other, this guy can work for us in the, out of the relief situation. And I think at the end of the day, we're expecting the starters to like you said, right the ship and everything's going to be okay from the starters' perspective. The real issue is getting relief pitching that is quality enough to, last throughout the rest of the season. And I do trust this Mariners team and front office to go and acquire good relief pitchers at a relatively good deal when it comes to we can trade from our prospects. We don't have to get rid of anybody on this team. We need a guy at first base. We need a better first baseman than Rowdy Tellez and Donovan Solano. Like that's just a requirement that's gonna have to happen. And we'll see if they're able to do that. But in terms of relief pitching and the ship kind of righting itself, I think that can happen from the Mariners. Like, I believe that can happen. I don't necessarily believe that they can acquire a great first baseman for a steal from our prospect trading haul. But the hitting continuing how it is, and the pitching righting the ship, I think those things can happen the way that everything has been going. So in that sense, I would not call us sellers. I think we're going to be a little bit above 500 for the next month or so. Maybe things shoot up a little bit. Maybe they write a little bit better. But I still think if you're floating around 500, you still go for it if you're this Mariners team. So we'll talk about it again later. But I wanted to ask that question now, and we'll talk about it more as we go along.
It's also worth noting, and this is not going to make you feel any better because I've been ringing this bell since he was acquired, and he's done basically nothing for the team. But Gregory Santos is on the 60-day IL. He will eventually be back. I know he's basically sucked his entire tenure with the Mariners, but he's still only 25, and he's a super talented relief pitcher, I swear to God.
That and like Gabe Spire will be used in more situations. He's kind of a lefty specialist right now. Yeah, the return of Santos will be good. Matt Brash, we will figure out how to use him eventually. Dan Wilson refuses to use him in anything but bases loaded, need a strikeout position. Which is why he only has 11 innings pitched. He pitches basically 0.1 innings every single time he goes out there. There are ways to make this bullpen function better. We can call up some players. We can acquire them. We don't have to do it at the trade deadline. We can do it now if we need to. So there's a world where this relief staff gets better and gets the help that it needs relatively soon here.
Staying optimistic. I love it.
Yeah. All right. A couple quick notes before we hop off. Just some Seattle sports news, and then we're going to get out of here. I said Kraken at the intro. I meant the Sounders. The Sounders are currently about to start in the Club World Cup, I believe is what it's called, the FIFA Club World Cup. And there was some news over the last couple of weeks. The Sounders were protesting because the players were protesting because the Sounders organization got $9.5 million for participating in this and being a club that's good enough to play in this. And the players were getting no money. So they were protesting that, and it's good news. It's the fact that the players are sticking up for themselves. The MLS is doing better when it comes to just like the quality of play. These are all good things for the MLS, and the players should be wanting more money considering the MLS, has not really ever supported them. There's a new CBA that's going to come. But the Sounders will play. They play on the 15th. They play, what's it called? Botafogo. And then they have a couple games against Atletico Madrid and PSG, the Paris club. So a couple really fun games for you guys to watch and just kind of see how the Sounders fare against international talent and those crazy good league or crazy good teams that are playing in the Champions League and everything like that. So exciting for the Sounders.
Crazy. Yeah. All 3 of those games at Lumen too.
That's you guys should be going to that. PSG just, I believe, won the Champions Cup.
Correct. They did. They beat AC Milan while I was in Milan. Fun fact.
I'm sure everybody was rioting about that.
People were very sad. We were worried. It's like, man, if they win, is there going to be a riot? Should we get out of the streets? Not an issue. People were going home at 6:30. They
weren't out sipping wine. They were just like, crap, we got to go home and just go to bed.
Well, we still have fucking art, I guess. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't want to watch that PSG game. I don't think it's going to go well for the Sounders at all. Maybe try to catch Botafogo. I think that might be more competitive. No interest in PSG, but I'm sure lots of people will go just to see all their stars. So that will be fun, if slightly humiliating.
We'll see how that goes. A quick checkup on the Storm. The Storm have gone 2-3 since we last talked. They play the Lynx, I believe, tomorrow or today when this comes out. And they are looking very average. They're 5-4 and play the Lynx, who are 9-0. So I expect that to be a loss. And we'll see what happens with this team. Have you been following them much while you were away? Yeah,
just one last note on Sounders. They're 2-2 in their last 4 since we talked. They've dropped their last 2 as well, which is disappointing. So we'll see how that fares with their international play. Storm, I have been following them, and I'm kind of bummed. Obviously, 2-3 in their last 5. They've also won their last 2, beating the Wings and the Mercury. But I'm kind of bummed they won those 2 because I was so ready. We had our conversation last time, and I was like, it could be this or it could be this. Sell. And it was completely playing out to my point of just oh no, they actually did lose one of their best players, and they've lost 3 straight, but then they won their last 2, so it's okay, no, maybe they are more mid. They're still 4th in the West, still have a positive record. So I'll tell you what, man, Lynx and Liberty combined 18-0. It is really looking like a 2-horse race.
They need to play each other right now. The fact that you have 2 9-0 teams is kind of crazy, especially in a 13-league team or 13-team league.
We'll see what the Fever can do once Caitlin comes back. Obviously, they played the Liberty very tough, but it is really starting to look like a 2-horse race. So all the more reason to sell, man. We are not competing with the tops of these leagues right now.
No. All right. Anything to say before we hop off?
No, that was a pretty quick one. We ranted and raved like madmen about the Mariners as usual, but tight 45.
Yeah, easy for us. Easy. We're working on it. We're getting better. Instead of an hour, we're going to try and get it to you quick. For John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright, and this has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, feel free to give us a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. You can find Sound Up Seattle on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcast. And we're also on YouTube if you want to look at our faces and enjoy our lovely discussion with my hands being on the screen and showing you things sometimes. You can find us also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, all at SoundUpSeattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can email us questions, comments, concerns at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere that's important. And you can find John?
Taking a summer off from video games. I know.
It's just not possible.
Horrified, but kind of doing a cleanse, if you will, a cleanse of the soul. So I finished Skyrim, and I'm hanging up the controllers until September 1st.
You're gonna need to have just the controllers tied with shoelaces above the TV, just waiting for your return.
Yeah,
they can see it in the background.
But I think that'd be too tempting. I think I need them out of sight. It's like an addict type of situation. So pray for me, boys.
Got it in the lockbox over there. All right, with all that being said, let's go Nurse. Turn it on, baby.
Go Storm. Fucking Nurse.